I mean, are you happy with the way the negotiations are going here at the Rio+20? Frustrated? How are things going?
Oh, I would say on the negotiation side, things are going very badly. I think after a year of work by the diplomats, we have a final text which falls way short of what we need to see out of this conference. I think what you see is a recognition, acknowledgement of the issues of sustainable development, of what we need to do, and then over and over again the parties agreeing to encourage each other to take action when they get home. But very, very few commitments that provide any assurance there will be action. And so I think if you focus on the multilateral negotiations part of Rio, the formal part, you have to be disappointed that it's not, and more than disappointed, you have to be outraged that this conference has not found a way to come to grips with those issues.
Did we get a hint that this might be the case a few weeks ago, just before people started to arrive in Rio? Or has this disappointment, has this failure to proceed really become apparent since people have started turning up here?
Oh, I think from the beginning this process has been fraught. We haven't seen the leadership we needed to make this process succeed, and we haven't seen the diplomats serious about the task of forging an agreement that really would be significant. So that's been true all the way. The hope, of course, was that as we got to Rio and as we got to the heads of state segment or the high-level segments, that they would find a way to break through, and that has not happened yet. And that means the next 3 days, the high-level segment is crucially important. Will those leaders, as they arrive, step up and say, you know, this challenge is too important, these issues are too important for us to be signing a document that just encourages each other to act. And we need to find a way to make real commitments here. But we don't see yet an indication whether that can happen.
I mean, we seem to be seeing many parties involved in the talks, business perhaps, some of the investment banks, certainly the NGOs, community groups, all pushing more or less in the same direction, all fighting for sustainable development, yet frustrated that the politicians, it seems, the diplomats and the politicians, are not taking them down the road they want to go down. What's holding them back? What is stopping the politicians making those moves when they've got business fighting for sustainable development in many cases? And also there are electorates as well, telling them this is what we want. What's stopping them?
Well, let me start by highlighting the first part of what you said, which is that I think the great news in Rio is what you see around the edges of the formal process, because you see actors of all sorts stepping up and just getting on with it, recognizing that the future must be sustainable development, and that the future will belong to those who just get going and find ways to be pioneers. And that's true of governments individually or in smaller coalitions. It's true of cities, it's true of companies, it's true of civil society. You see various actors coming together in coalitions of the committed, ready to crack problems that are important to them. So that's great news, and you see many examples featured here, from the work that WWF does, from the work of other organizations. So that's important. I think what you don't see is that translating into political will in the formal negotiations. And it may be that it is just not realistic to expect 193 countries to come together in a text that's ambitious, because the process just leads you to a lowest common denominator product. And in this case, the lowest common denominator is very low.
As the frustration grows around, about the process, is it possible that the process, the whole series of COP meetings, simply becomes irrelevant? Will people stop turning up and try to find their own paths? I mean, is that feasible?
Well, I think what's coming clear out of the Rio conference, as we've seen in some others before, is that we just can't look to these processes to lead the way. We do need the global community to find a way to come together around these problems, because there's some aspects of this challenge that really need to be accelerated by global agreements. But what's, I think, increasingly clear is that we have to find a way to build the political will and the political pressure to do that. And countries just getting on with it, companies just getting on with it, are all, I think, helpful in that respect. Action that begins to make a difference and at the same time creates the political space for governments to come together in a more powerful way.
And what's the minimum you would like to see by Friday night?
Well, I think we need to see heads of state say, this is not good enough. And there are a handful of issues that have been on the table here that really would make a difference in terms of signaling an intention to change the direction of the economy. So that's bringing environment and social issues into how we measure national progress, into gross domestic product. It's bringing those indicators into how we measure corporate success. It's eliminating the subsidies, especially fossil fuel subsidies, which take us badly in the wrong direction. It's getting serious about sustainable development goals and saying, here's what those goals should address and how we're going to get serious about them. It's restoring real meaning to protection for oceans and real momentum around addressing issues of energy. I mean, there are a suite of issues there which don't solve all the problems, but really would signal a seriousness about coming to grips with the challenge of sustainable development.
That's great, thank you.